core of Alabama's ruling is the concept of fetal personhood, which has been a central tenet of the anti-abortion movement that tries to legally define that life begins at conception or fertilization, thereby giving frozen embryos legal rights. The opinion also included references to God and other Christian beliefs in a country in which the separation of church and state is written into the First Amendment of the Constitution. And it furthers, the controversy was further exacerbated when journalists uncovered that Tom Parker, the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, has expressed the belief that American law should be rooted in the Bible. On the same day that Alabama handed down the ruling, Parker gave an interview during which he, quote, suggested America was founded explicitly as a Christian nation and discussed his embrace of the Seven Mountains Mandate, the belief that conservative Christians are meant to rule over 7 key areas of American life, including media, business, education, and government, end quote. How fun. It's the sort of Christian nationalist belief that conservatives have been trying to traffic into government for generations. A number of Republicans have since distanced themselves from the Alabama ruling, and Trump has even gone as far as to call for Alabama lawmakers to protect access to IVF in their state. But don't mistake Trump's recent remarks as a sign that he's moderating his stance on reproductive rights. Trump's politics have always been transactional, and as evangelicals have become the core of his base, he's leaned hard into posturing as a man of faith. On Thursday, he attended the International Christian Media Convention in Nashville and gave a speech that did just that.
My first term, I fought for Christians harder than any president has ever done before. You know that. You know that. And I will fight even harder for Christians with 4 more years in the White House.
There's a faction of the Republican base that believes that Trump would do just that, and it's not just conjecture either. The Heritage Foundation has already drafted what's known as Project 2025. It's a radical plan that's intended to usher in the most conservative administration in modern history, to empower the presidency in ways America's founders fought hard to avoid, and infuse Christian values into the federal government. Trump has close ties to people advising Project 2025, including Russell Vought, who served as the director of the Office of Management and Budget during Trump's first term. As Politico notes, Vought has promoted extreme Christian nationalist policies in the past, including, quote, a restrictionist immigration agenda, saying a person's background doesn't define who can enter the U.S., but rather citing biblical teachings whether that person accepted Israel's God, laws, and understanding of history, end quote. And there was a time not long ago when overturning Roe seemed like an impossibility, as justice after justice assured the public that that was settled law. But some pregnant women are now dying or have to reach the brink of death before they can receive proper medical care because of the new restrictions on abortion. And now there are also Americans who want to have babies to start or to grow their families, but are now facing new restrictions because of Alabama's ruling. Alabama is a bellwether for where the country could be headed. It's a bit of a canary in the coal mine, if you will. And if we continue to shrug off those emerging policies, fringe beliefs, it may be too late. Joining me now is Doug Jones. He's the former Democratic senator from Alabama. He's the author of the book, Bending Toward Justice. Also joining us, Molly Jong-Fast, a special correspondent for Vanity Fair, host of the Fast Politics podcast, and an MSNBC political analyst. Welcome to both of you. Thank you for being here this morning. Molly, let me start with you. There's a lot in there. The primary last night is the thing that's freshest on everyone's mind. There was no surprise that Donald Trump won the South Carolina primary, even though it's Nikki Haley's state. The surprise is that Nikki Haley continues to have strength among those people who are not Trump supporters and who may want somebody other than Trump as president.
Yeah, some really interesting things happened yesterday. I would say one of the sort of top lines in my mind is never Trump is still never Trump, right? There are Republicans in this country who are never Trump. And now, 6 years later, they continue to be never Trump. And I think that those voters are not going to Trump, right? And maybe they stay home and maybe they vote for Biden, but they are not going to Trump. I also thought what was really interesting about that election last night was that the polls really showed Trump doing about 10 points better than he did. everywhere.
Right.
And so for Nikki Haley, you know, is she going to win this primary? Maybe not. But she's showing that he is really vulnerable in a way that I think is really kind of surprising.
Senator, good to see you again. Talk to me about how you are looking at all of these developments, the primary, Donald Trump's very unusual behavior, and of course what's going on in your own state of Alabama, which has been at the cutting edge of abortion restrictions since the fall of Roe.
Yeah, well, you know, Ali, first of all, I totally agree with Molly that I think Trump is continuing to show vulnerabilities in the general election coming up. And that's something to watch for as we go forward. I think what we're seeing is Donald Trump wanting to be the president of the United States of Alabama, fighting culture wars. This is not just about reproductive rights and abortion. If you look at what our state legislature is doing about books and libraries, trying to ban DEI, we're in a tough situation down here. We're fighting hard. But folks need to realize, and you have said it yesterday, today, and I've heard you say it before, folks need to watch this because this will spread out to the rest of the United States. That is exactly what the MAGA movement wants to do, and Donald Trump wants to lead that charge.
Molly, I want to ask you this because you are the child of one of the early second wave feminists in this country. What's going on in Alabama is Handmaid's Tale stuff, right? It's not, even conservatives are a little puzzled as to what is this ban. The Attorney General's not sure what he's going to do about it. Donald Trump's got conflicted views on the whole matter. And that's partly because people are finding it hard to accept that what the court in Alabama has said is your reproductive rights are not yours to control. End of story. It doesn't really matter whether it's about abortion, whether it's about contraception, or whether it's about IVF.
Right. This is the logical conclusion of overturning Roe, right? I mean, my mother, 1973, they overturned Roe. She published her seminal book, Fear Flying. It was a moment where we thought women had the same rights as men. And in fact, they tried to pass the Equal Rights Act, which was this idea that women should have the same rights as men. Not insane. And it never passed, and we never got those rights. And now we see that if you overturn Roe, what you do is you open the door for all of this. And that's what we're seeing. And I think what's really interesting about all these IVF, you know, you have these Republicans who are saying, like Nancy Mace, I want to protect IVF. And then you look back at their voting records, and they have in fact voted for bills that postulate that life begins at conception. So obviously they believe in fetal personhood, which is this embryonic personhood, really, which is this insane thing. But the thing is, they didn't care enough when they wrote these legislations to protect women. And that's what we're seeing with these pregnant women who are, you know, waiting in hospital parking lots until they're sick enough to get treated. They never cared enough to write cutouts in this legislation. So they passed this legislation that is now making it IVF is impossible and abortions are impossible and saving the life of the mother is a question.